Just checking the sound, Stacey. Lovely to see you and hang out. Beautiful. Have you got your mic on unmute at the moment?
Do you want
Can
it
you hear?
unmuted?
Have you got your mic on unmute, Stacey? Oh, it's on mute now.
Do you want it muted or unmuted?
No, it's good to have a sound check, and it's lovely to hear your voice.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, if as with the other hangouts, if you want to say something, then yeah, absolutely unmute your mic.
But keep it muted otherwise.
But otherwise, keep it muted. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I hear from Priya? Is your voice working today?
Check, check.
Yeah, that's good. I can hear you loud and clear. Namaste. Welcome to the Advaita channel. Sri Sadguru Mujiji Ki Jai. Sri Sadguru Anantaji Ki Jai. Sangaji Ki Jai. So if you're new, you're joining YouTube, very happy to have you here. I'm reading from The Transparency of Things, Contemplating the Nature of Experience by Rupert Spira. And we've got through quite a large amount of the book. And they're contemplations that take us deeply into the experience of what we are, which is not what we have been taught and have learned to assume what we are, which up until this point, or if you're new, maybe the belief that you're a body and a mind. So, but it's about taking us beyond belief to experience. So I'm going to read the back as I usually do, because it gives you a little bit of a summary, and then I read to the natural breaks in the book, and we have some silence, and there may be sharing if we feel in the heart to intuitively do so. There might not be, but feel free to, as you're moved in the heart, to speak. But otherwise, you can just sit and listen and enjoy the silence. The purpose of Rupert Spira's book is to look clearly and simply at the nature of experience without any attempt to change it. A series of contemplations leads us gently but directly to see that our essential nature is neither a body nor a mind, It is the conscious presence that is aware of this current experience. As such, it is nothing that can be experienced as an object, and yet it is undeniably present. However, these contemplations go much further than this, as we take our stand knowingly as this conscious presence that we always already are, and reconsider the objects of the body, mind, and world. We find that they do not simply appear to this presence, they appear within it. And further exploration reveals that they do not simply appear within this presence, but as this presence. Finally, we are led to see that it is in fact this very presence itself that takes the shape of our experience from moment to moment, whilst always remaining only itself. We see that our experience is, and has only ever been, one seamless totality, with no separate entities, objects or parts anywhere to be found. So I've got about an hour, I think, before I've got to go and do something, so try not to run over. Consciousness, peace, I. That which is not present in deep, dreamless sleep is not real. And that's by Ramana Maharshi. Taking our stand as the witness establishes the fact that consciousness is independent of objects and present throughout their appearance. Consciousness is present, and by definition, conscious. That is what it is, and that is our experience in this moment. How would it be possible for whatever is seeing these words to see them if it were not conscious? When no objects are present, such as in deep sleep, this consciousness is, by definition, still conscious. It is conscious of itself, but not of objects. That is why it is called self-luminous and self-knowing. It both illumines and knows itself at the same time, all the time. Deep sleep is the experience of consciousness knowing its own luminous self. What else is present in the experience of deep sleep? Peace and myself. Peace is not an objective experience. It is simply the presence of consciousness without an object. That is why it is peaceful. It is this experience of peace that we look forward to when we go to sleep. And it is this experience that enables the body and the mind to reappear refreshed in the morning. The body-mind reappears in the morning, saturated with the peace from which it arises. Likewise, myself, my real self, not the separate entity that appears as an object of thought or feeling from time to time, but the self that I have always been and always am, is present in deep sleep. In fact, it is not quite right to say that it is present in deep sleep, because that implies that it is some kind of an object that exists in deep sleep. It is more accurate to say that I, myself, am deep sleep. Deep sleep is the experience of consciousness, peace, and myself simultaneously. That is our own direct, intimate, and immediate experience. There are no objects in deep sleep, and therefore no boundaries, so consciousness, peace, and myself are identical. So if there is a sense of peace here now, can you find any difference between, or separation between the knowing that there is peace and the peace itself? Of course, we're dealing with labels, but there is a sense of peace. or silent? Do we find two things? One, silence, and two, the knowing of that silence? Do we find that in experience? It's possible to come to a realization that silence is the self, peace is the self. Not metaphorically, because there's no separation between the self and the presumed objective experience. Between the observing and the observed, there is no between. It's just this that we give name and form to. And in doing so, we say it's separate from I, awareness, something that the mind feels that it needs to get to. Namaste to Nitya and Jane. Lovely to have you joining with us through YouTube. Hope it's all working. If there's any problems, then just make a comment. See what we can do. When the first object, usually a dream, appears after deep sleep, it does not appear as an object coming into this presence of consciousness, peace, I. Where would it come from? Out of what would it be made? No, it is this consciousness, peace, I, that takes the shape of the dream, and in turn takes the shape of the waking state. So consciousness, peace, I, never disappears. It simply takes the shape of every current experience, and when there is no objective experience, it simply remains as it always is. That is why it's sometimes said that meditation is like being asleep while remaining awake. It simply means that we remain knowingly as this consciousness, peace, I, as that which is deep sleep, in the presence of objects, that is, in the waking state. It does not mean that we should act as if we were inert or without feeling. Every experience of the dream and waking worlds is only this consciousness peace I, taking the shape of thinking, imagining, sensing, and perceiving. That is why Ramana Maharshi said that only that which exists in deep, dreamless sleep is real. It is that which takes the shape of every experience, and that which is the substance, the reality of every experience. There is only that, and, by definition, I, consciousness, is that. Namaste, Carla. Lovely to have you with us in the hangout. Just this. How is it that there seem to be so many contradictions in expressions of the same understanding? Some teachings will state the absolute truth over and over again in various ways, whilst others will appear to condone the separate entity by entertaining ideas in which an apparent person is included. For instance, one may state, "You have no freedom," and another may state, "You have complete freedom." In the first statement is addressed to an if the first statement is addressed to an alleged person, an apparently separate entity, then it is true. If it is addressed to the presence that we are, the consciousness that is seeing and understanding these words, it is false. Conversely, if the second statement is addressed to presence, it is true. If to the person, false. So the words are relative to their context, but we should not conclude from this that their meaning is relative. Both answers express the same understanding. It is the understanding from which the answer comes, rather than the content of the words themselves, that is important. That understanding is not something that is known. It is silence itself. This silence is not a blank object. It is not an absence of sound, which in fact is no silence at all. It is the background of presence, which is the support and substance of all appearances, including an absence of sound. It is an alive, open unknowingness that is free to take any shape or any position at any moment in relation to the moment itself. The words of the teaching are the shape that this silence takes, and it is this silence itself that is delivered in the answer. The words are the packaging. Once the message, this unknowing openness, is delivered, or rather revealed, The packaging can be discarded. The words can be forgotten. In this way, the teaching remains free of fixed formulations, dogma, and fundamentalism. It remains fluid, playful, enjoyable, unpredictable, and ungraspable. It always leaves us in open unknowingness. This open unknowingness is what we are. It is not something that we know. So, if a question comes from an entrenched belief in the reality of the separate individual, and such a belief usually has its roots in a deep feeling, one answer may just demolish the premise of the question and go straight to the heart of the matter. The belief and feeling of separation, whilst another may take the apparent person by the hand, so to speak, and walk him or her through a process. It would be simplistic to think that the first answer is necessarily a formulation of the direct path, expressing the highest truth, and the second a formulation of the progressive path, representing a lesser understanding. The apparent contradiction between these two positions may not be a contradiction at all, in the same place, and therefore be the same answer. No formulation of the reality of experience is completely true. Once we acknowledge this, we relieve words of the impossible burden of trying to express the true nature of experience, and as a result, leave them free to be spoken and heard in playful and creative ways that evoke reality itself, but never try to frame or grasp it. A question, by definition, comes from the unknown. The answer comes from the same place. The only difference between the two is that onto the unknown from which the question comes, we superimpose a layer of objectivity and limitation through seeking and expectation. The answer simply relieves the unknowingness from which the question comes of its superimposed limitations. It returns the veiled unknowingness to an open unknowingness that is silent, empty, free, luminous, transparent, and unlimited. ready at any moment to take the shape of just this. Lovely to have Amaya joining us now as well. The doer. How is self-knowing brought about? Are you not present now? Have you not always been present? have you ever experienced the absence of consciousness, the cessation of your existence? You, consciousness, are prior to experience. You, consciousness, are not the result of an experience. All experience is a result of you. You are not the result of a process. Therefore, your being, your reality, and the peace and happiness that are inherent therein cannot be the result of a practice. Any so-called practice that aims for happiness cannot be called spiritual. It is worldly. It is end-gaining. It is a perpetuation of the strategies of consolation and avoidance that characterize conventional life in the world. Having said that, such practices also have their place in the revelation of happiness. And ironically, it is precisely because they do not work that they are effective. Their efficiency is in their inefficiency. Sooner or later, this form of worldly practice, this bargaining with God, fails. Our usual strategies of denial last for some time, but when all compensations have been exhausted and we have nowhere else to go, a crisis of despair and longing is precipitated. This unwinding of the tangled knot of seeking is the end of the conventional spiritual search. It is the deep understanding that nothing can be done as an individual, that the individual itself is a form of doing. However, even this last gasp of conventional seeking can be appropriated by the separate self-sense in an attempt to continue avoiding its own reality, and with its mantra of "there is nothing to do," it remains imprisoned in the ivory tower of its own isolation. However, at some point, the seeking for happiness exhausts itself, and the unknowing that is laid bare in its absence is revealed as an invitation from another direction, from an unknown direction. In most cases, this invitation will take the form of a teacher. The true teacher is in fact this very knowingness, and the crisis of despair and longing, whether it comes in one intense afternoon or in a vague feeling of numbness and lack that pervades the years of seeking, is in fact only this knowingness breaking through into the realm of our everyday experience. The human teacher is, for most of us, the first form of this knowingness, and through our association with him or her, in whatever form that may take. We are returned to the knowingness that is ourself. In some ways, this encounter ends a chapter in our lives. In another way, it opens a new one. What we previously thought to be practice or doing is no longer a choice. It is an impossibility. At the same time, the offering of the body, the mind, and the world to presence becomes an inevitability. From the outside, this may look like a practice, like something that an individual is doing for a desired end, and it may not differ outwardly from more conventional modes of spiritual seeking. However, it is nothing of the sort. They are worlds apart. In fact, it is not even the offering of the body, the mind, and the world. It is the reclaiming of the body, the mind, and the world, their reabsorption into that from which they were never, for a single moment, separated. This should not really be called practice. It should be called love. In fact, it is love. there would have been a time where there was this felt expectation for me to say something, to impart some knowledge. Actually, last week in the hangout, I could feel that sense. Pressure of the idea or the thought of a me has on itself, whilst this open unknowingness even allows that. And this open unknowingness is just no one's achievement. Although the idea of myself as having achieved open unknowingness might come. That idea just appears in open unknowingness. What is there when there is no label? No expectation for any particular kind of experience. Just drop all labels now. Any expectation, even the expectation that you should be without expectation. Like I said, no expectations equals freedom. So this open unknowingness that's here right now, that's no one's achievement, is already expectation less. There's nothing to do for it. Whatever experience is here is here. Because of that, so if there's expectation there, let it be there. Rather than come from a mental position of I must be empty of expectation. Because the support and substance, that which allows expectation, is self-expectation less. Open unknowingness. Which doesn't mean that the idea or the idea of grasping or seeking or expecting can't be there. But it's not really you. The grasping, expecting, seeking is not really you. What it is and it isn't. I just want to, I've got probably about 5 or 10 minutes, and I just wanted to hear from anyone that wanted to say anything. And there isn't any obligation to, so if there's nothing, just remain silent. But if if anyone wants to share anything. I wish I could stay for longer, but I'm on my wife's time at the moment, so so yeah. Please, if you've got anything that you want to share, then please do so. My prayer.
No, nothing much to share really. Just to say that it's just it's just all this just happening. It's just happening. There's what is happening now is that you feel there's love for you. There's the light. There's nothing. It's laughing. And yes, even the anything can happen in this expectation. I liked earlier what you said about what was it you said? You're mute.
I said, I bet you didn't expect that to happen.
What, for you to disappear?
There's nothing here anyway.
No, that's right. It's a beautiful nothing. All appearing in this. You said something earlier that I really liked, but I can't remember what it was. Something about oh, what was it? You said about something appearing. Then you said something like even that is allowed to appear, and I love that. I love that anything is allowed to appear.
It was seeking and grasping, and these things that the mind can use as a reason to say, I'm not there yet.
Yeah, yeah. That can,
And
yeah, yeah, that all appears, doesn't it? It's like that all can play, and even total belief in it can play.
mm,
Even though for the one believing it, it feels like torture.
like last week when we were off air, actually, I spoke about experience on the narrow boat that I was on, and this panic that came up. You know, this sense of, heightened sense of fear, and it was allowed to play and be as it was, without this sense that I'd lost something, or it shouldn't have been the way it was.
Yeah.
It was just what was appearing in this.
Yeah. And oneness can see that. Oneness can see that. When it's seen, it's like they can see it be seen as a play in thing. By nobody.
Thank you, Priya. If there's anything on YouTube, it's all very quiet there. I've gone to sleep. It's lovely to have you as well, Stacey, in the hangout. And Carla. Thank you for joining me today. Everyone in the hangout, on YouTube, the silence, the sharing of this. May all beings find this peace that they are. Sadhguru Sri Muji Ji Ki Jai. Sadhguru Sri Ananta Ji Ki Jai. Sangha Ji Ki Jai. Thank you.